Enjoy your new home, Dad, my son Mark said, slamming the trunk shut. Then he and his wife Sarah got in their car and drove away, leaving me on the curb at the airport with a one-way ticket to hell. I quietly sat down on a bench. I looked at my watch. I gave them exactly 1 hour of celebration before I activated the trap that would turn their new gift into a financial prison. Just 2 hours earlier, we were at my lawyer's office. The air was thick with fake sentimentality. Sarah, my daughter in law, dabbed at her dry eyes, whispering how grateful they were. Doing this meant signing over my fully paid off family home. It was the house my late wife Helen and I poured our souls into. But ever since Helen passed, Mark and Sarah insisted it was just too much for me to handle alone. Their concern was believable at first. They promised to take care of everything, finding a wonderful retirement community for me. They just needed the house in their name, they said, to manage my assets and pay the fees. The pen felt like 1,000 pounds as I signed the final page. I'll get back to that moment, but I need to say, this story gets complicated and the details matter. If you enjoy seeing a carefully built plan come together when greedy people get what they deserve, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what happens next. The second my signature was dry, the atmosphere switched. The fake tears evaporated. Mark clapped me on the back too hard, his grin too wide. "This is great, Dad. We're going to be so happy here." Sarah was already texting, fingers flying. They insisted on a celebration at an expensive bar. They ordered champagne and toasted family. My card, of course. They were vibrating with excitement, celebrating a successful heist. Then came the ride to the airport. The celebratory mood vanished in the car. The silence was cold. Mark drove, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Sarah sat in the back, staring at her phone, treating me like luggage. I asked, "So, what's the name of this community again, son?" Mark just grunted. "You'll see when you get there, Dad. It's all arranged. Just relax." His voice was flat, dismissive. He pulled up to the curb, engine running. He got my small suitcase from the trunk and set it on the sidewalk. He handed me the ticket. "Your flight board's in 2 hours. Gate B12, he said, not meeting my eyes. Sarah didn't even get out. She just waved. "Enjoy your new home, Dad," he repeated. They got back in the car and left. Abandoned me. I watched their car merge into traffic. I looked at the ticket. It wasn't to Florida. It was a one-way flight to a budget facility in rural Ohio. A place I knew was a dump. They thought they had won, gotten rid of the old burden. I sat on that bench, the wind whipping my jacket. I checked my watch. 1 hour. I gave them 1 hour to get home, to dance in my living room. And then, my phone buzzed, and buzzed again. 18 missed calls from Mark. Right on. Schedule. My phone wouldn't stop vibrating on the hard metal bench. The screen lit up with Mark's face, over and over. Mark, 18. 18 missed calls in less than 10 minutes. The desperation was practically rolling off the device in waves. It was almost comical. The panic must have been setting in right about now. I sat there on that cold airport bench, the useless ticket to Ohio in my jacket pocket, and I smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the kind of smile you get when a complex machine you've spent months building finally clicks into place. Click. The main gear had just engaged. They thought I was a senile old fool. They thought I was a burden to be shipped off so they could live in my house, free and clear. They had no idea that I'd been planning this for 6 months. Not since the day I'd been quietly reading in the den and overheard Sarah on the phone in the kitchen. She was laughing with her mother, talking about how they'd have me in a state-run dump by Christmas, and how they could finally sell this old house and buy a condo in the city. That was the day I stopped being a grieving widower and started being a hunter. I let the phone buzz out. Mark would be losing his mind. Sarah would be screaming, her fake grateful mask melting off her face. The vision of them standing in my living room, their champagne toast turning to ash in their mouths, was delicious. I silenced Mark's incoming 19th call. I opened my contacts and pressed a different name. David, lawyer. David picked up on the first ring. Is it done? He asked. His voice was calm, professional. They just dropped me off, David, I said, my voice steady. They're celebrating. Not for long, David replied. I could hear the faint sound of him typing. I'm looking at the automated tracker. The registered email from the IRS was successfully delivered to their inbox exactly 4 minutes ago. And the transfer? I asked. Registered with the county clerk at 3 p.m., David said. As of that moment, Mark and Sarah became the proud sole owners of the property. And as of 3:01 p.m., they also became the sole legal recipients of the $450,000 delinquent property tax lien I've been holding for you. This was the beautiful part. My late wife, Helen, and we'd had some serious financial troubles years ago when she first got sick. We'd legally deferred a massive chunk of our property taxes. It was a complex, ticking time bomb of a debt that was tied to the property, not to me personally. As long as I owned it, the state was willing to let it ride. But the moment it was transferred to a new owner, the entire amount, plus interest, became due. Immediately. David had structured the transfer documents perfectly. Mark and Sarah, in their giddy, greedy rush to get the house, had signed everything, including a waiver of full inspection and an acceptance of all outstanding encumbrances, known or unknown. They thought it was just legal jargon. They had no idea they just signed their own financial death warrant. My phone buzzed again. Mark, 22. He's persistent, I chuckled. He's desperate, David corrected. That email notification from the IRS isn't subtle. It's titled Immediate Seizure Warning. They have 72 hours to arrange payment in full before the government begins proceedings to take the house. A house they can't sell, I added. A house they can't sell. David confirmed. Not with that lien, they are trapped. Good, I said. I looked at the Ohio ticket, pulled it from my pocket, and tore it in half, dropping the pieces into the trash can beside me. Now, about my real flight. My phone buzzed again. A text message this time, all caps. Dad, answer the phone. It's an emergency. The bank made a mistake. We are being robbed. Call me now. I turned the phone off. I stood up, picked up my real carry-on bag from under the bench, and walked toward the international terminal. I walked away from the domestic terminal, leaving the memory of Mark's car speeding away. The international terminal was different. Quieter, cleaner. I used my real credentials to get into the first-class lounge. The noise and desperation from my phone felt a million miles away. I sat in a plush leather armchair and ordered a ginger ale. My phone, which I'd turned back on, buzzed on the glass table. It was Mark, 34. 34 missed calls. The panic was escalating. I decided it was time. I let it ring once, twice, and then calmly answered. The sound that erupted from the speaker was pure chaos. It wasn't even a word, just a roar of panic and rage. Dad, where are you? What did you do? I held the phone away from my ear. In the background, I could hear Sarah screaming, a high-pitched, hysterical wail. Ask him. Ask him about the money. We're ruined. We are ruined. I took a calm sip of my ginger ale. Mark? Son? Why are you shouting? I can barely understand you. I made sure to put a note of frail confusion in my voice. I'm at the airport, just where you left me. Is something wrong? Did you forget something? Forget something? He bellowed. The house. The IRS just emailed us. They're saying we owe... Oh God, Dad. They're saying we owe $450,000. They're going to take the house. They say it's a tax lien. You have to fix this. Now. I let a few seconds of confused silence hang in the air. A tax lien? Son, that can't be right. That must be a mistake. Are you sure? I'm just an old man, Mark. I don't understand any of this. You said you would handle all the paperwork. You and Sarah. You said it was all taken care of. I heard a scuffle and Sarah's voice, shrill and sharp, was suddenly screaming into the phone. You knew. You old fraud. You set us up. You did this to us. You have to call them. Tell them it's your debt, not ours. Tell them you tricked us. Sarah, dear, I said, my voice dripping with false shock. Such language? I'm I'm astonished. I just signed where you and Mark told me to sign. I trusted you, thought you were protecting me. Did you did you not read the documents you gave me? The ones your own lawyer prepared? There was a sudden, dead silence on the other end. All I could hear was Sarah's sharp, ragged breathing. Click. That was the sound of the trap snapping shut in her mind. She had just realized. Mark got back on the phone. His voice was no longer a roar, it was a desperate, cracking whisper. The documents. Acceptance of all outstanding encumbrances. Oh my God. He was choking on the words. Oh God, Dad, you have to come back. Please, we can undo it. We'll give you the house back. I don't care. Just come back to the airport and fix this. Come back? I said, looking at the departures board. Oh, son, I'm afraid I can't do that. What do you mean you can't? He shrieked. Get on a plane. We'll buy you a ticket. Just come back. Well, for starters, I said, swirling the ice in my glass. I tore up that ticket to Ohio you gave me. It seemed like a dreadful place, and frankly, I was a bit insulted. What? I'm sitting in the first class lounge, Mark. My real flight board's in 30 minutes, and I really, really can't miss it. I hung up. I clicked end call and immediately powered my phone off. No more calls, no more listening to their manufactured panic. The flight attendant came by, a warm smile on her face. Champagne, sir, before takeoff? I smiled back. A genuine smile this time. Yes, thank you. I'd love some. As she poured the bubbling liquid, I thought about the cheap champagne Mark and Sarah had bought with my money just hours earlier, toasting their success. This glass was different. This was a toast to my success, to my freedom. The plane took off, lifting me up and away from the life that was and hurtling me toward the life I had chosen. My destination, San Jose, Costa Rica. I had already purchased a small, beautiful villa in the mountains, paid in full through a shell corporation David had set up. My assets, the ones Mark and Sarah thought they'd be managing, had been liquidated and moved offshore weeks ago. The house was the last piece. It was the bait. As the plane climbed above the clouds, I allowed myself to think back, to remember the exact moment this plan was born. It was about 6 months ago. A rainy Tuesday. I was in the den in my old armchair, reading a book. Mark and Sarah were in the kitchen. They thought I had fallen asleep. They were always so careless, assuming I was either deaf or senile. Sarah's voice was low but clear. He's just lingering, Mark. It's been a year since Helen died. He's just sad and in the way. I know, Mark sighed. His voice was impatient. But we have to be gentle. We play the long game. We get the house, then we can make a move. How long, Mark? She whined. My mother says there are state-run homes that are perfectly fine. We can't have him living with us when we, you know, start our family. He's just a burden. He'll ruin everything. A burden. That one word hit me harder than a physical blow. My son, my only child whom I had raised, supported, and loved unconditionally, thought I was a burden. Not a father. Not a grieving husband. A problem to be managed. Mark's next words sealed their fate. Look, we just have to get him to sign. We'll find the cheapest place that will take him, ship him off, and then this entire house is ours. We deserve this, honey. We've been so patient. I didn't move. I sat there for an hour after they left, the book in my lap, staring at the wall. The grief from my wife was suddenly overshadowed by a cold, hard, calculating rage. They weren't just greedy, they were cruel. They were willing to throw me away like trash. That night, I called David. David, I said, I need to make some creative adjustments to my estate. I have a project in mind, and I need you to find every legal loophole you can. I want to set a trap. The plane leveled off. The seatbelt sign turned off. I looked out the window at the endless blue sky. I was no burden. I was a free man. I turned my phone back on purely out of curiosity. 52 missed calls, and a new voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. A lawyer. Their lawyer. The real fun was just about to begin. I landed in San Jose to the smell of rain and coffee. My phone, which I had kept off during the flight, was immediately flooded with notifications. The voicemails had piled up. I found a quiet spot at a small cafe just outside the airport, ordered a local coffee, and pressed play on the first new message. It wasn't Mark or Sarah. It was a man with a deep, slick voice. Mr. My last name? This is Arthur Vance from the law offices of Vance and Thorne. I'm representing your son, Mark. There appears to be a significant financial misunderstanding regarding the property transfer. A very significant one. Please call me back at your earliest convenience. This is an extremely time-sensitive matter. I took a slow sip of coffee. Time-sensitive. I loved that. I ignored his message and called the one person I actually wanted to talk to. David, I said, I've landed. Welcome to paradise, boss. David's cheerful voice came through. How was the flight? Peaceful. But it sounds like things are getting time-sensitive back home. David chuckled. Oh, you heard from Mr. Vance? Yes, they've been busy. They figured out the tax lien. They've spent the last 12 hours trying to get an emergency loan to cover it, assuming they could just borrow against the house's value. And? I asked, though I already knew the answer. And they ran face first into phase 2. They can't get a loan. They can't sell it. They can't even give it away. The lien you and I placed on that house is a rock-solid wall. This was the beautiful part of the plan. The tax bill was the punch. This was the knockout. Before I gifted them the house, David, acting as my old business partner from a shell company, had placed a massive secondary lien against the property for a supposed unpaid business debt. This lien made it impossible for them to sell or borrow against the house until it was paid, and it was just as big as the tax bill. They were trapped. They owed $450,000 to the IRS, which they didn't have. And they couldn't sell the $2 million house to get the money, because they'd first have to pay another $500,000 to my business partner, me, to clear the title. I decided to call Mark back. He answered on the first ring, his voice hoarse. Dad, please, did you get a lawyer? Can you fix this? Mark, I said, playing the helpful father. I'm so worried. I was thinking, why don't you just sell the house? It's worth so much. You could pay that tax bill and still have over $1 million left. It's an easy fix. I heard a sound like a choked sob. We can't, he whispered. What do you mean you can't? There's another one, he said, his voice cracking. Another lien. Some company we've never heard of. It says you owed them $500,000. We can't sell, Dad. We can't do anything. We're trapped. Oh dear, I said, looking out at the lush green mountains. That does sound like a problem. I guess you should have read the fine print. After that last call, I turned off my phone. I had a new local number now, one that only David had. My old life and my old number were officially closed for business. I spent the next 2 weeks exploring. I found a small local restaurant, a soda, as they call them here, that served the best Gallo Pinto. I walked in the rainforest, breathed air that didn't smell like city fumes, and slept more soundly than I had in years. I was, for the first time since Helen passed, genuinely happy. About 3 weeks after I'd landed, David forwarded me an email. It was from Sarah, my loving daughter in law. The subject line was just please. The email was something else. It was a long, rambling, hysterical mess. It started with apologies. We didn't mean it. We love you. We were just stressed. It then moved to accusations. How could you do this to your only son? This is your family. You've ruined us. But the best part was at the end. Mark isn't sleeping. He just stares at the wall. The bank is calling, nonstop. The IRS has put a freeze on our accounts. We can't even buy groceries, Dad. Please, we'll do anything. We'll pay you back. Just call off the second lien, the business partner. Tell him we'll pay him after we sell. Please, I'm begging you. You're killing us. I had David check their financial status. It was true. Their accounts were frozen. The beautiful new car Sarah had bought the day after I signed the papers, it was in the process of being repossessed. They were completely and totally broke. I told David to reply. The reply was short, professional, and came from his shell corporation. Dear Mr. and Mrs. My last name. Regarding the lien on the property at house address, we are not interested in negotiating payment terms. The debt is due in full. We will not be releasing the lien until the full amount of $500,000 is paid. We have no further comment at this time. I imagined Sarah's face when she read that. The shift from desperate hope to absolute crushing despair. It was almost cinematic. That night, a massive tropical storm rolled in. I sat on my covered terrace, listening to the rain hammer down on the roof, drinking a 20-year-old rum. I felt nothing. No guilt, no remorse, just a profound sense of balance. The universe was simply correcting itself. They had planned to put me in a cheap room to rot. Instead, they were the ones trapped in a multi-million-dollar prison they couldn't leave, with no money and no future. The storm passed, and the next morning the air was clean. I received one last forwarded message from David. It was a single line from Mark's email address. You're a monster. I deleted it and went for a swim. Another month passed. The silence was delicious. My life in Costa Rica had taken on a beautiful rhythm. I'd wake up, have coffee, go for a walk on the beach, and check in with David. David, my lawyer, had taken to sending me weekly gloom reports, Emily called them. They were my new favorite reading material. Report number 1. The repossession of Sarah's luxury SUV was complete. David got the report from the agent. Sarah had apparently been hysterical, screaming at the repo man that he couldn't do this and that she was a very important person. The man, unimpressed, simply hooked up the car and drove it away while she cried on the curb. Report number 2. Arthur Vance, the slick lawyer they'd hired, had officially dropped their case. The reason was beautifully simple: non-payment. They couldn't even afford the legal fees to try and save themselves. They were now completely defenseless. Report number 3. This one was my favorite. David, through his various contacts, had found Sarah's private social media posts. She was trying to sell her designer collection. Her $1,000 shoes, her diamond tennis bracelets, the stupidly expensive watch Mark had bought her just after I signed the house over. The posts were desperate. Selling some of my pre-loved items. Need cash fast for a personal emergency. DM for prices. These were the exact same items she used to flaunt at country club parties, looking down on everyone else. Now she was selling them for pennies on the dollar, probably just to buy groceries. I leaned back, taking a sip of ice-cold water. The best part? The tax deadline was looming. They had failed to pay. They had failed to negotiate. They had no assets left to sell except the very house they couldn't touch. David's final note for the week was short. The IRS has filed its final notice. The bank has officially started foreclosure proceedings based on the unpaid tax lien. It's no longer in their hands. The auction date is set. They were no longer just broke. They were on a timer. The house was going to be sold right out from under them. The day of the auction arrived. It was a beautiful, sunny Tuesday in Costa Rica. I had planned a special trip, a visit to a sloth sanctuary. But before I left, I had one last video call with David. "It's a beautiful day for justice, isn't it?" I said, holding my coffee up to the camera. David grinned. "It's chaos back here. You should see it. The auction is in an hour. Mark and Sarah are actually there, on the courthouse steps. I have a guy watching." "They're at the auction?" I asked, surprised. "What do they think they're going to do? Object?" "From what my guy says, they're trying to hand out flyers," David said, trying not to laugh. Flyers, claiming the auction is illegal and that they are victims of a conspiracy. People are just taking the flyers and throwing them in the trash. I pictured it perfectly. Sarah, who always looked like she'd just stepped out of a magazine, probably looking frantic. Her hair a mess, her designer clothes wrinkled. Mark, who always thought he was the smartest man in the room, reduced to handing out pathetic pieces of paper like a common protester. "This is better than I imagined," I said. "It gets better," David continued. "They apparently tried to declare bankruptcy at the last minute to stop the sale. The judge took one look at their case, the multiple liens, the deliberate non-payment of federal taxes, and threw it out. He called it a frivolous and bad faith filing. They had truly used up every single option. There was nothing left. No more tricks, no more lawyers, no more money." "So it's over," I said. It was almost a statement, not a question. "In about 45 minutes it will be. The bank will open the bidding at the exact amount of the IRS tax lien. That will be paid first. Then whatever is left over will go to the second lien holder." "And who might that be?" I asked, playing along. "A very discreet shell company that I happen to manage," David said. "I'll be bidding on your behalf to secure the property. We'll get it back, free and clear. The tax bill will be paid and your business debt will be settled. It's perfect." "And Mark and Sarah?" "They will be officially classified as former owners. They'll be given 48 hours to vacate the premises. They will walk away with, let me check my notes, absolutely nothing." I hung up the call and headed out to see the sloths. My phone didn't ring once. I got back from the sloth sanctuary in the late afternoon. My phone was quiet. No calls, no texts. It was almost anticlimactic. I poured myself a glass of rum, sat on my terrace, and watched the sun begin to set over the ocean. Just as the sky turned a brilliant orange, my laptop pinged. It was an email from David. The subject line was simple: "It is done." I opened it. There was no long text, just an attachment. It was a short video file, shaky, clearly filmed on a phone. It was from David's guy at the courthouse. I hit play. The video showed the courthouse steps after the auction. Mark and Sarah were still there, but the small crowd was gone. A man in a suit, probably from the bank, was taping an official notice of foreclosure and eviction to the front door of my house. Sarah, yeah, she just lost it. It wasn't the fake, manipulative crying I'd heard on the phone. This was an ugly, raw, animalistic howl of despair. She sank to her knees on the pavement, screaming, "No, no, you can't. It's ours." Mark was standing there, frozen. He looked hollow. The man who always had a plan, who always thought he was 10 steps ahead, was just empty. He stared at the notice, his face pale, his hands shaking. Then he saw the man filming. "What are you looking at?" Mark screamed, his voice cracking. He lunged at the camera. "Stop filming us! Stop it!" The camera fell, the screen went black, and I heard a scuffle. Then the video ended. I sat there for a long time, just listening to the waves. They had lost everything. The house they had betrayed me for, the money they'd stolen, their cars, their reputation. It was all gone. My phone, which had been silent all day, suddenly lit up. It was a new text message from Mark. I opened it. It was only 7 words. I hope you're happy. You've destroyed us. I looked at the message. I looked out at the peaceful ocean. I thought about the words old burden and nursing home. I typed a single reply. No, Mark. Your own greed did this. Enjoy your celebration. Then I blocked his number. And Sarah's. Forever. It's been 6 months since that last text message. My life here in Costa Rica is peaceful. It's simple. I wake up to the sound of birds, not to the sound of whispering in the hallway. I spend my days reading, walking on the beach, and learning to surf. I've even started volunteering at the sloth sanctuary. The house is gone. David handled the final details. We sold it, paid off all the debts, and I donated a significant portion of the remaining money to a local children's charity here in my new town. The rest is more than enough for me to live comfortably for the rest of my days. I am no longer a burden. I am just me. Sometimes I wonder what happened to them. I assume they had to move into some cheap apartment, find real jobs. I assume they blame me for everything, and they probably always will. But then I feel the warm sun on my face and I realize I just don't care. I didn't do this to them. I simply gave them exactly what they wanted, the house, and let their own greed and arrogance do the rest. I just removed the safety net. They thought I was a fragile old man, an ATM, a final obstacle to their perfect life. They forgot that I was the one who built that life from nothing, and I could just as easily build another one without them. So here's my question for you. Did I do the right thing, or did I go too far? What would you have done in my place? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for listening to my story. If you don't want to miss other stories like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one.